Prime Minister directs authorities to launch full-scale investigation. First Operation Open Heart administered by PNG doctors. Powerlifting team to compete in Melbourne in preparation for the Pacific Games.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
Thanks for joining me with Wednesday's news. Good evening. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill is disappointed with the handling of the Gulf disaster relief supplies. The relief supplies were left to rot at Tubuseria village outside Port Moresby since last year. He has directed the Chief Secretary, Manasupe Zurano, to launch a full-scale investigation to establish the cause of the delay.
In July last year, parts of Gulf province were affected by floods, leaving many people without food and water. The provincial government has since then called for the release of disaster relief funds to purchase food supplies. The national government has responded positively, releasing 3 million kina for relief supplies. But what has transpired was a classic case of fraud involving provincial disaster officers allegedly colluding with their partners to misuse the funds. This has resulted in the relief supplies not being delivered to those affected. Provincial leaders, past and present, were disgusted, calling for an investigation.
All these containers of foodstuff and relief supplies sitting in Port Moresby or sitting in Malalawa or sitting elsewhere are delivered immediately, because these floods happened 8-9 months ago, and there's been no relief, and it's a travesty of justice.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has directed the Chief Secretary Manasupe Zurano to investigate.
We hear about the wastage that has taken place, and we're a bit disappointed because our people are suffering, and many of them going without water, without food, and our officials not doing their job is not good enough. That is why we need to establish what has happened. Right now we are sending all the relief supplies and relief funds directly to the provinces. NEC is appropriate, and we've started sending money to the provinces. Provinces need to get up and start working so that our people get the supplies on a timely basis. And people are dying if they are not eating. People, when there's no water, they're getting sick. So that is why we're a bit disappointed, but we'll allow the Chief Secretary and his team to investigate and find out what has happened.
The vessels that were supposed to deliver the goods were grounded by NMSA for sea unworthiness. NMSA says documents provided by Mundi No. 1 Limited to Gulf disaster officers to deliver the goods were invalid, as it was not endorsed by NMSA. NMSA has also questioned the existence of West Coast Shipping Services Limited. To them, this is not a reputable shipping company. It is understood that the owners of West Coast Shipping are involved in many fishy deals and owes money to several companies and individuals. Mickey Cavera, National EMTV News.
There is a plan to make electricity available to 1 million users along the Ramu power grid by the year 2030. This will begin with the delivery of power to Tari in Hela Province. Phase 1 of this ambitious plan was sealed today with the signing of an agreement between PNG Power and Oil Search Limited. Phase 1 of this plan will see, for the first time, a 24-hour electricity supply into Tari, the capital of Hela Province. According to Prime Minister Peter O'Neill, the continuous supply of electricity should be embraced by the people of Hela Province. This major integrated power project will provide further infrastructure, including new transmission lines and up to 100 megawatts of increased generation capacity. Operation Open Heart for the first time is being administered by an all-PNG team. 2 patients are now recovering at the Port Moresby General Hospital after successfully undergoing heart surgery in the first of these scheduled operations. This year's operation is spearheaded by PNG's medical experts in cardiotherapy with assistance from local medical officers. Eric Warukma with this report.
At its first scheduled operation yesterday, 2 heart patients successfully underwent heart operations. They are now recovering at the emergency unit under supervision from local nurses at the Port Moresby General Hospital. This life-saving operation is headed by PNG's cardiothoracic surgeon, Noah Taparua, anesthetists Awin Karu and guest medical officers from Singapore.
The operation to remove this sick valve, and we put in a mechanical valve, which is a plastic valve. We like. We have two types of valve. One is biological or tissue valve, which we get it from animal tissues, and this one is a plastic valve.
Over the years, many patients have had to seek medical treatment overseas because of lack of medical experts and facilities. Operation Open Heart patron Justin Tachenko said this operation provides an avenue for patients to access medical treatment at a less cost.
I'm very, very pleased to be sitting here with these two champion doctors of Papua New Guinea here at Port Moresby General Hospital after their historical operation of their first open heart operation done by a Papua New Guinean team.
This service is part of the national government ongoing support and commitment to improve health standards in the country. Eric Aruma, National EMTV News.
The Lands Department has been under the spotlight for various allegations of corruption. Last week, the Ombudsman Commission completed a report on allegations of corruption against the department that has been presented to the National Parliament for deliberation. Secretary for Lands, Romilly Kilapat, says he's tightening up systems and processes in the department. Sarah Aupong with this special report.
In recent weeks, the National Research Institute has raised serious allegations regarding the lack of confidence in land titles issued by the Lands Department. One argument raised is this lack of confidence affects the ability of Papua New Guineans accessing loans. Secretary Kilapat says he is aware of these criticisms and allegations leveled against the department, but says construction activities occurring around the country shows there is confidence in the titles.
That you see a lot of developments taking place in Port Moresby, in Lae and other centres. It's because people have title to land. And a good number of them, or most of them, have gone to the bank to obtain loans to actually build.
In the same regard, he says the accusations that the department issues duplicate titles stems from the misunderstanding of the process that goes into issuing a title.
There is no duplication of titles, to be quite frank. What we do is, once the process is complete, there are only one title, but one is a copy and one is an original. We need to keep a copy in our files. It's containing the same information, everything is the same, nothing is different. And the original goes back to the land, the leaseholder.
However, Wiley says there is no duplication of land titles. Mishandling of land titles have occurred.
Of course, there has been numerous occasions of fraudulent titles issued, and we have caught up with some of these officers, and you will find that these titles are not issued in the department. A lot of them is forged. Information that they contain on those titles are not the same. For example, we have, when the Registrar of Titles registers a title, he issues a volume and folio number. When you look at those titles, they use volume and folio numbers for a different property altogether, and they fabricate it and use it outside.
This brings to light the mammoth challenge the department has in managing the movement of files and data, both within their offices and leaving the department. In an attempt to tighten up loopholes that exist, which makes the department vulnerable to the clampdown on these activities, the department's top management is putting in place tough measures.
People are carrying files out, and I said I cannot sit back and allow these things to happen. We've gone to court. We've been directed to produce documents. We're looking for files. So on an interim basis, I got tough on the guys. I said, we are going to lock all the doors and everybody access through the front. We check all the bags to make sure no files are going out of the door. We have fire exit areas. I've given instructions that nobody uses it. Only on emergency we use it. We've gone further to install cameras and alarms on those strategic locations.
He says officers found to be guilty of corrupt activities have been dealt with accordingly. The department is also in the final stages of launching their electronic documentation system.
And our target is to complete it by the first part of this year, but unfortunately our submission to the Central Supply and Tenders Board is slightly delayed because they raised a couple of issues with us. So I've responded already and given them all the facts and the considerations and all that. So I'm hoping that probably in the next few weeks they can give us the okay so we can re-engage.
The department is able to use some functions of this system, and the secretary fully believes this is the way to go.
Current documented process is watertight. Every officer that performs a certain level of activity from the beginning right to the end has a certain level of access into the system. And they will be, each one of them will be given a password. So whenever it's their time to do some work, they enter their password and they have access to the system, and they enter the data that is required for that particular performance that they're supposed to do. Now, in the event that somebody enters a wrong data or tries to manipulate the system, we can go in and find out who went in at what particular time and what they did. So it's easy, I can just pick up the phone and call and say, you come here, what did you do on this thing?
A complaints desk which was launched last year has had some traction. However, he says the complaints are not specific enough to warrant an investigation and consequent actions. Secretary Kilapat says he operates an open-door policy and encourages concerned individuals to continue to bring forward their complaints.
Our people really need to come forward. If somebody is holding on to a fake title, bring it, because I'm not scared to deal with the officer. We want to clean this place.
Sarah Aupong, National EMTV News.
The state versus customary land figures in Papua New Guinea has changed. Land Secretary Romilly Kilapat says due to the alienation of more customary land to the state, the figure has changed, but the exact figure can only be determined after a lands audit is conducted.
Figures have changed because the state is now acquiring, through the land acquisition process, acquiring land for public purpose. So the figures have changed. It will be now within the vicinity of, we're looking at almost like 80% of the land is now, or say 85% of the land is under customary tenure and the rest is under state.
Students at the PNG University of Natural Resource and Environment in Eastern New Britain have maintained a standoff from class following an outstanding petition presented to the administration last month. The boycott has now dragged into its third week with no solution in sight. Yesterday, students mobilized and forced the closure of all admin operations and sealed off all lecture rooms. Armed policemen from Caravat were called into the campus today by the administration, forcing students to go to class or face being arrested and locked up. No arrests were made, but student leaders have told MTV News they won't attend lectures until the petition is addressed. The petition presented to the University Council demanded that the SRC be reinstated and the current mode of teaching be phased out. Students today demanded that the Minister for Higher Education, Malakai Tabar, intervene and resolve the issue. MTV News understands the university's graduation ceremony, scheduled for next Friday, may be affected if the boycott continues. You're watching National MTV News. The O'Neill Foundation launches its first Waswas House. Flood victims in Madang and West New Britain face shortage of food and water. Those stories and more when we come back. Welcome back to the news. A growing body of research suggests poor oral hygiene habits begin from an early age. A joint campaign launched on the weekend between Colgate and the Department of Health aims to educate young children and their parents on how to take better care of their teeth. Now in its fifth year, the Colgate Bright Smiles, Bright Future initiative has provided education to thousands of Papua New Guineans on good oral health practices. This year's campaign, launched in Port Moresby over the weekend, aims to reach 200,000 children by the end of this year. The project is run in conjunction with the Department of Health by providing training and education to staff to educate school students as well as their parents. General Manager of Colgate-Palmolive PNG, John Wood, says there is a huge task ahead to raise oral health practices in Papua New Guinea.
Aiming to cover off well in excess of 200,000 people right across the country.
After 30 years, settlers at 6 Mile now have access to water. About 10 water taps were commissioned by Moresby South MP Justin Chichenko and Edarano Chief Executive Henry Mokono recently. Jack Lapave Jr. reports.
The squatting of settlements on the fringes of Port Moresby is becoming common. And for settlers, access to basic services such as water continues to be a growing concern. For the Ragamuga communities, walking for miles to fetch water each day will now be a thing of the past. Principal landowner Sima Saraga says he's hard to see communities access water as allowed Edaranu and MP Justin Chechenko to provide this service.
Thank you again to Minister and all the Edaranu executives. Thank you very much.
The Mosby South MP called on the people to take ownership and embrace this service.
Use the water wisely. Do not waste the water because it's going to cost you money.
MP Chechenko says such service comes at a cost to build, and residents will dig into their pockets with the subsidized arrangement with service provider Edaranu.
With that, we have to all put a little toy each to ensure that the water still flows.
In fact, no settlements, no community also, Mibla subsidized costs go down through. So that Mibla can help him you help him Mibla, the water you must have also.
Water projects in the Mosby South electorate cost almost $500,000 kina, and MP Chechenko says more areas will be looked into along with the building of markets and police stations. Jack Lapava Jr. National, MTV News.
Pari Village was the first recipient of the Waswas House through the Peter O'Neill Foundation's Waswas concept. The concept aims to promote general cleanliness and hygiene among the people. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill officially opened the Waswas House at Pari Village today.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill was warmly welcomed by the people of Pari Village. Since establishing the Peter O'Neill Foundation, his team has been committed to their cause. Their mission is to ensure people in villages, towns and cities have access to proper water and sanitation facilities. This first Waswas House was a culmination of this great effort. The project, though in its initial stages, is expected to have lasting health benefits on the lives of the people, a thing the Prime Minister is passionate about.
It is important that we give our kids the opportunity to also have a healthy lifestyle into the future. Without water and proper sanitation, we are bound to get diseases that are very much preventable, like typhoid, TB, of course diarrhea, and many other diseases that are killing thousands and thousands of kids and families throughout the country.
He says hygiene can no longer be taken for granted and that the people must take ownership to maintain the facility for future. Prominent Pari leader Professor Isi Keva also stressed the importance of hygiene.
So it is important for people in the villages to be fully aware of the dangers of these microbial agents. And it is extremely encouraging from you as the Prime Minister, as the leader of this nation, to take this approach to improve the hygiene, the lives and of people in Papua New Guinea.
Mosby South MP Justin Chechenko assured the Prime Minister to work closely with the village councillors to maintain the facility into the future.
The church with the councillors will run and look after this Waswas program here in Pari Village. They will take ownership of it, maintain it and look after it so that the people of Pari can have this facility not just for today, Tasol.
The project cost 280,000 kina. Mickey Cavera, National, MTV News.
Settlers living in Idubara near the Port Moresby Technical College have been without water and electricity for 2 weeks. The company contracted to carry out road work had damaged the main water supply pipe and also removed power poles. This is in addition to the removal of settlers' houses.
The National Capital District Commission is clearing land along the Idubada area to construct a 4-lane road. As a result, settlers living nearby were evicted 2 weeks ago. However, not all houses were removed. Only 13 houses and 4 trade stores along the roadside were removed. Due to the damaged water pipe, the remaining settlers are getting the water from a nearby drain. However, they claimed the water has brought sickness to their children.
na house na all samnin em rausim guara tem tok tok through or pignim blomi na bubu blomi emi wasos desla na emi sick so mama blong karim go ausi na ausi go find one em now tok e gamba mi by bian ba mi tok so em desla problem that's all people walk sabana stop long and now we play come.
Like many other settlers, these people migrated to Port Moresby in the 1970s and settled on Motu Koitabu land. These people are the third and fourth generations. Their current population is more than 700 and still growing. Their community leaders claim that their forefathers made an agreement upon arrival with a local landowner to settle in and be part of the Motu Koitabuens. Thus, their water supply bills are also paid by the Motu Koitabu Assembly.
In the 1970s, na 60s, mol tumuna blumipla oli friend one time mol papa ground. Ol tumuna blong sarama. Manwe give pikinini blong papa block display ground. Emi give him sarama na sarama ya allow him mipla lo stablo disla land. Na mipla stab mipla come up good friends. Oli toko semba mipla stab. So mipla sa stab heavy trouble blong emka mipla sa help him long lily contribution. Like him mipla sa give him mipla stab o same family. Way back long 70s 60s he come now. Family, part long Hanwa Bada.
Meanwhile, they are requesting their local MP, Michael Malabag, and NCD Governor Powes Pakop to look seriously into the matter and address it quickly. Vasinata Yama, National EMTV News.
Water and food supply to villages affected by recent floods in Madang is becoming scarce. Much of the food gardens and water supplies had been destroyed by flooding, leaving people struggling to access food and water. Villages are now surviving on store goods while they replant new gardens.
For 4 weeks, continuous rains, floods and landslides in Madang's Usinobundi electorate have damaged food gardens and livestock for villages in Asas, Kesawai, Dumpu and Sausi. The floods have left over 6,000 people with less food and clean water supply, threatening their main source of income. As the road linking the 4 villages was cut off, accessing these basic needs remains a serious concern for these people. For villages who collect water from dug-up wells, they have resorted to digging up holes besides the flooded rivers to collect clean water for drinking and cooking. The continuous rains and floods experienced here is leaving villages with the fear of another heavy flood that will completely destroy their water source. While resettling is not an option, the process of rebuilding their lives is at the mercy of the weather. Takla Gunga, National EMTV News.
West New Britain Governor Sasindran Muthuvel has expressed disappointment over the failure by the Finance Department to release funds allocated for disasters in his province. Governor Muthuvel's call follows concerns of food and fresh water shortages in West New Britain. Several roads and bridges were also destroyed by flood following heavy rains and cyclones. Sylvester Gawi has this report.
Disaster has already struck the people of West New Britain province, but the long wait for relief supplies and support has created more problems for them. Food and water shortages and the lack of proper shelter to house their children have become an even bigger challenge.
Now mi plus stop looking mi plus item canvas mi plus sile parrelo nambis. Mi saus mi plus mi bagarap lo win. Reni go inside bagarap now mi plus making planti lo mi plus making more ground house. Na mi plus sile plongem.
The Provincial Disaster Office is being put under pressure to assist where it can. The West New Britain Provincial Government has received only 1 million kina of the 8 million kina allocated by the National Government. Governor Sasindran Muthuvel, who led an appeal for relief support, is disappointed with the government's response, especially the Finance Department, for not releasing funds on time. Relief supplies and financial support from business houses and individuals have been brought together, but it's still inadequate for all the affected communities. Some affected families are now living in makeshift shelters, and the struggle to get food and water is very challenging.
How me play stop and me play stop lo strong lo me play na me play stop. Me play stop posem na me play it sa pani liklik piece na market tisim liklik toya na me play baim kai.
Roads and bridges affected by flood continues to be deteriorating with the heavy rain. The government is expected to spend millions of kina in fixing these infrastructures to withstand disasters. Sylvester Gawi, National EMTV News.
With the current disasters that have occurred throughout the country, Northern Province is still awaiting outstanding funds committed by the government in 2013. Northern Governor Gary Juffa was concerned that although 5 million kina was committed by Prime Minister Peter O'Neill in 2013, only 2 million kina was released. Governor Juffa has called on the Prime Minister to honour his commitment.
Northern Province is a disaster-prone area, says Governor Juffa. He was concerned that it's been 2 years and the province is yet to receive the remaining funds committed as part of relief assistance following the Prime Minister's visit to the province in 2013.
My people are suffering because every time there's a flood or there's high levels of sea or in drought or some disaster like that, we have to dig deep into what little funds we have and divert them to be able to save lives, you know. And these funds are due to us from the national government. Disasters are the responsibility of the national government, and yet provinces are expected to respond to them. With what? We don't have funds.
Governor Juffa says the funds are needed to implement the provincial disaster management plans and policies, the ones that were created and upgraded when Governor Juffa took office. Governor Juffa also feels that his province has been denied various budgetary allocations, even though they followed proper processes to submit their PIP submissions.
We're very anxious because we keep having disaster-like situations, but we are starved of funds. Last year we didn't get 23 million. This year 15 million has not been given. And all our PIP submissions are ignored, even though we fulfill all the requirements. I'm prompted to ask again, Mr. Prime Minister, can you please keep your promise to the people of Oro?
In 2013, the Prime Minister visited a province and made a commitment of 5 million kina for flood-affected areas in Tufi. Of these, only 2 million kina was released. From funding for floods, tourism development through to funding for infrastructure development, one thing that is for sure is that the province is yet to receive outstanding funds. Governor Juffa says if nothing is done, he will take legal action. Bridget Komatep, National EMTV News.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says it is important that the provincial administration gets its paperwork properly submitted. Prime Minister O'Neill says this was not done in the past, but once PIP submissions are done properly and clearly articulated, they can be processed. And now a look at the finance news. The kina closed unchanged at $0.3735 US in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your kina was buying $0.3660 US, $0.4773 Australian dollars, $0.3364 euro, and 43.48 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold, coffee, copper and cocoa all closed higher, while crude oil, copper and palm oil closed lower. And on the stock markets, the Dow Jones closed at 200 points lower, the ASX closed 31 points lower, and the All Ordinaries closed at 29 points lower. 3 Africans enter PNG illegally, visiting American artists inspire locals, and hundreds farewell the late Major Albert Tagua. Details after the break. Welcome back to the news. 3 Africans have illegally entered Vanimo town without proper checks at the PNG-Indonesian border. Vanimo police confirmed arresting the 3 suspects, detaining them before they were later released. The police said 2 of the 3 suspects are Egyptians. Their whereabouts now is not clear, but Vanimo police said an immigration officer in Vanimo will be in a position to clarify this. Attempts to get comments from the immigration department have not been successful. Art is more than painted music and can be used to create positive messages that can transform lives in a community. This was highlighted by a visiting artist from the American Arts Incubator Program who is currently in the country to award grant recipients. The American Arts Incubator Small Grant is a funding initiative by the U.S. Department of State to provide an opportunity for young people and women to promote positive thinking through art.
In Papua New Guinea, the confidence booth set up by a youth movement group through YWCA caught the attention of the American Arts Incubator Program. The group Youth, Adolescents and Health Group was the proud recipient of the grant.
To create conversations and to advocate for young people's issues. So the message behind the CBOB is that it's the keyword used, confidence. You cannot stop rape unless you have the confidence to stand up and say, you cannot sexually abuse me. So that's the reason why we want young people to build self-confidence.
David Rupa is a member of the group who is currently studying at UPNG. He says the confidence booth is an avenue where young people can create conversation and advocate on issues affecting them. Since 2009, his group has advocated on issues affecting young people.
Art advances through looking at it from different perspectives. That single piece of picture, it can look messy, but it paints 1,000 words. It can send a message.
The American Arts Incubator Program is aimed at recognizing artists and groups that advocate issues affecting everyday challenges and social ills. Kendall Henry is an American artist. He has been in the country for 3 weeks to award recipients of the American Arts Incubator Program. He hopes recipients will be able to set up small projects that impact the lives of the community. In terms of accountability, the grants are strictly monitored to ensure recipients use the grants transparently.
Each person had to sign a contract, and the money wasn't just given as a lump sum. As they reach a goal, let's say to purchase materials, then they get some money, design, then they get another bunch of money. So it sort of, and they had to produce receipts as well. So it was very carefully looked after when the grant was given out.
Kendall says his view of artwork goes beyond paintings and music.
And in these particular instances, we're using it as a tool for social engagement, for addressing sort of a different way of addressing a social issue. And we see it as another language, actually, a visual language that is more accessible to people than verbal language.
Similar grants were awarded to recipients in Laos, Philippines and Mongolia. Bridget Komatep, National EMTV News.
The body of the late Major Albert Tagore was finally flown to Koroba in Hela Province to be laid to rest. A special ceremony was held to salute the ex-serviceman who was once a platoon commander for the Papua New Guinea Air Transport Wing. Hundreds gathered in Tari to witness his casket's arrival home.
It was an emotional moment for the people of Hela as they witnessed the return of one of their highly educated sons. Late Major Albert Tagore served the PNG Defence Force with distinction for 24 years before resigning to pursue his interest in the aviation industry. His unfortunate death shocked loved ones, his friends, family and the elites of Hela. He was not an ordinary Papua New Guinean. Late Albert was instrumental in the development of the air transport business leg of logistic company Trans Wonderland Limited.
This is a very significant day today.
A special ceremony was held to farewell him. Most describe late Albert as a man full of energy and one who had the heart of everyone.
So spirit belongan and peace.
PNG Defence Force Air Transport Wing pallbearers led by Colonel Kisakau and Major Edimani brought late Albert home in true military fashion to Edemari village, his final resting place. Late Albert is survived by 2 wives and 6 children. Jokla Pave Jr. National EMTV News.
You're watching National EMTV News. Trukai Sports is next. Our powerlifters off to Melbourne to prepare for the Pacific Games. I'll be back with the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The PNG Powerlifting Federation will be sending a team to compete in the Australian Powerlifting Championships in Melbourne, Australia next week. The championships will be ideal to upskill and prepare the athletes in preparations for the 2015 Pacific Games. President of the PNG Powerlifting Federation, Raymond Hauda, has confirmed a team of 8 to travel.
Powerlifting Federation has selected 8 powerlifters to travel to Melbourne, Australia next week to compete in the Australian National Championships. Now, within the 8 are no surprises. Obviously, Linda Paulson has been selected and Tahina Booth will be joining the team in Melbourne from Sydney. Now, President of the PNG Powerlifting Federation, Raymond Hauda, is backing the team to do exceptionally well against their Oceania competitors.
Well, we're going to be up against the cream of Australian powerlifting. So what we want to do is do well amongst the Oceania, the South Pacific countries that will be attending, and I'm confident we'll do well.
Dobby Mayer, Meteng Wok, Kalau Andrew and Vagi Henry are all part of the team of 8 to travel to Melbourne and will be decked out in uniforms provided by their first and only sponsor so far, KK Kingston.
Well, currently we have a squad of 30 and we've selected 8 lifters, including Tahina from Sydney, to travel down to the Australian Championships, only because these guys are gold medal potential.
Following the Australian Championships, a final selection will be made for the July Games. Many of the powerlifters in the current squad stand a good chance at making the cut for July. However, there is some uncertainty on Tahina Booth's qualifications for the Pacific Games.
For her to compete for PNG, there's a bit of question mark, but the authorities management will dwell on that.
As gold medalist potentials for the 2015 Pacific Games, Raymond wants the team to gain as much experience and exposure before peaking in July.
The squad that we've selected, their performances over the past few years and recently in the national titles speak for themselves. They prove that they should be on the team. So maybe a couple of places. When we come back from Melbourne, we're going to have a camp and a mini comp on the 24th of April, and we should clear out who should be in the final squad or not.
Now, Mr. Hauda also said that this will be a good lead into the 2015 Pacific Games. Lorraine Genia, National EMTV Sports.
To fishing now, and the first 4 days of the national game fishing titles have proven to be exciting with a few big catches and some stunning misses. The next few days will showcase class fishing from the serious anglers as the competition heads into the final days of the national titles. Dion Kombang has this report.
Day 5 of the 40th National Game Fishing Titles this morning saw the anglers compete in a shootout.
Well, the shootout's a one-day tournament amongst the whole game fishing tournament. And we all go out and try to catch a marlin. It's all about marlin. The boat that tags the most marlin wins the shootout.
After day 4 in the boats points, Hooker 2 took a big lead in the weight category, followed by Osprey and Santa May. In the tagged category, Madness leads, followed by Hooker 2 and Santa May. The angler point sees Craig Armstrong lead in the weight category, followed by Rob Hewlett and Rob Betterham. And in the tagged category, Terence Hulley leads, followed by Russell Curtin and Andy Page. The national titles not only attract serious anglers vying to be named champion, among them are youngsters Delvin Lang and Adam Che in Team Chomi, who love the sport of game fishing.
Oh, I just like the adrenaline, like when the rod, you hear the ratchet go off, and just like being able to go out with your mates and your family and stuff on the weekend, have a good afternoon or day, yeah.
The sound when the sound of the reel when it goes off, like I can't make the sound because it's pretty embarrassing, but yeah, that's all. And when you catch the fish, it just looks beautiful.
The competition is to head into its final leg over the weekend before the competition comes to a close on Sunday evening. Dion Kombang, National EMTV Sports.
We'll have more sporting action for you after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to True Guy Sports. The SP Hunters will be taking on the Sunshine Coast Falcons in this weekend's round 5 matches. Coach Michael Marum has named an unchanged side for this weekend's match after a comprehensive 38-10 victory over the Tweed Head Seagulls. Elijah Lovett with this report.
The SP Hunters returned to the winner's circle after a 38-10 win over Tweed Head Seagulls on Sunday in their Round 4 Interest Super Cup match at the Colourborn Rugby League Oval in Kokopo. The Hunters have now pushed up to the second place, with Townsville Blackhawks also on 6 points, retaining the first spot due to superior percentage. Kumul's coach Mel Meninga considers the Interest Super Cup as the second strongest competition in the world of rugby league, and this year he believes the PNG Hunters can go all the way.
Hunters could win the Intrust Super Cup this year. Certainly not too far down the track. But what we're finding from year to year is that a lot of our players, this is the ultimate goals, a lot of our Hunters players, we want them playing at the National Rugby League club or going over to England and playing in their top league over there, the English Super League. So that's our goal. And then once we got all that, and when we got so many players playing around the world, well, let's bring them home and let's compete in the National Rugby League.
They will play the Sunshine Coast Falcons this weekend, as the next Round 6 match is also an away game against the Wynnum Manly Seagulls. Elijah Lavette, National EMTV Sports.
With less than 100 days remaining until Port Moresby plays host to the 2015 Pacific Games, many of the venues remain incomplete. While major stakeholders of the Games have assured the successful delivery of the Games, residents living within the vicinity of the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium have voiced their concerns. They say they have not seen much progress within the past 12 months.
The Sir Hubert Murray Stadium, as you can see in the far distance, is one of the many venues that are yet to be completed. Now, less than 100 days away from the opening ceremony, Chief Executive Officer of the Games Organising Committee, Peter Stewart, has again given reassurance that the venues will be completed on time.
We're going to be playing this Pacific Games in some of the best venues in the world. And without a doubt, these Pacific Games are going to be played on international class venues that are going to be world standard, large numbers of spectators. We're very, very happy with the venues.
Time and again, the people of Papua New Guinea have received continuous assurance from the Games Organising Committee and the national government that the Games will progress accordingly and work on each of the venues will be completed prior to July. However, residents living along Laws Road in Port Moresby have witnessed the construction work on the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium since day one and are concerned. Willie Peter is not the only one with doubts. Abden Alex, also residing within the Konadobu suburb of Port Moresby, says the progress has been substantial.
Mibla no gat big la tinting use game member finish lo time because mibla lugum all no prepare. Yeah, stadium me two side and finish, backside side na side and finish, but not la left side na side go same no finish.
In response to concerns raised by the public, Mrs. Stewart says the construction work is not a concern for the organising committee, as they are focused on the minor issues such as ticketing and the operations of the Games in July.
We don't have any concerns about the venues. Our concerns at this point are minor things about making sure that food is right, catering is right, transport is right, our volunteers are right. One of our biggest things is making sure all the teams give us all the names of their athletes in plenty of time so that we know how we can do draws and that for the various games. So all of our issues at the moment are very small.
Although MTV hasn't received a rundown on what is yet to be done on these venues, we are left with the assurance from Mr. Stewart himself, Sports Minister Justin Chichenko and Prime Minister Peter O'Neill that the Games will be delivered. Lorraine Genia, National EMTV Sports.
And that report ends our sports segment. Stay tuned for the weather details after these short messages.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
Taking a look at the weather forecast for tonight in the southern region, Port Moresby, morning fog clearing, then brief evening showers. Alotau, brief evening showers. Fine for Popondetta, evening showers for Kerma, and a shower or two for Daru. In the Momasi region, Ley, mostly fine. Brief showers expected for Madang, and afternoon showers expected in Wewak and Vanimo. Over to the New Guinea Islands, Lorengau, Kavieng and Kokopo, you can expect a few showers, brief afternoon showers for Buka, and afternoon showers as well for Kimbe. And in the Highlands region, all centres to expect morning fog clearing, then fine. And before we go, our top stories again. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill directs authorities to launch full-scale investigations into Gulf disaster relief supplies. First Operation Open Heart administered by an all-PNG crew, and our powerlifting team to compete in Melbourne ahead of the Pacific Games. That has been National EMTV News. I'm Meribatulo. Pleasant viewing. Good night.